I'm curious about strategies for dealing with hostile audiences. Been there, especially where hostility is justified. For example, African American vaccine hesitancy is informed by a brutal history of abuse and neglect by the medical establishment. Same is true for indigenous populations and archaeology, as well as medicine, I'd say. Republicans are rightfully skeptical that some activists are trying to slip broad progressive policy initiatives into climate change efforts, etc. Okay, so he gives us a few examples of communicating to a hostile audience. Do any of our panelists have any tips or notes from experience on that front?
I think, well, if I may say to this one there, I think those are broad topics and broad areas. So I think there's not a one size fits all approach, particularly if you're with the audience, kind of once, or if you're repeatedly with the audience. I think if you're repeated, there is gaining the trust. I think that's very important, and showing respect and going back and forth. One thing that we have done with Duma and I, and that was a few years back in our very first small research grant that built on this Birch Bark project. At that point, it was exploratory in nature, and we collected the stories that the elders had, but we built this into our grant that it was told to a community liaison person, and the PIs were not involved. Only if the community allows us to know about these stories, we will get that. And then the community will decide what they do with the stories. Because normally when you have the information out, then the information is out. And in fact, at that time, the community actually decided, no, we don't want to share and want to take that further. So as a researcher, it was kind of, oh, here are some publications that are not published. But it was very important because that led now to a much bigger grant and the bigger project. Because now over the years, and Duma can attest to that, it was viewed very negatively and poorly, and saying, the community basically said, we don't want to disseminate the knowledge because other people are stealing our knowledge and we're not benefiting from that, particularly with regards to commercialization. And now it's completely the opposite by saying, yes, we actually support that. However, the community needs to benefit from that. So this is kind of this trust building, and that can take a long time. Like, I'm on this project now for 8 years. So it's really a long time, a long process. So it's really getting that trust step by step. That's what I could contribute to that.
Thanks, Matthias. Yeah, and one interesting thing I've heard sort of behind the scenes is researchers advocating for granting agencies to recognize the time frame that trust building takes, and to build that into the timeline available in your grant. So it's not you get money and you have to start right away with results, but you can start with some money and start building those community relations, and then actioning the project. If I could respond as well, as I want to highlight something I was trying to communicate in my video, which was not 3 minutes nor a video, but I tried. The idea of sort of one of the courses that I teach at CBU is Indigenous literature, and so I'm always thinking about this idea of trust and knowledge and communication, and whether I am or probably am not the right person to teach that course. And so I was trying to talk about having this balance between acknowledging past harms and acknowledging the imperfection of the system, for instance, me teaching this course, but also still moving forward, and not risking making it about yourself. I think the first time I taught the course, I spent maybe 20 minutes at the beginning of the class saying that I was the wrong person to do this, and that I wasn't sure what I could contribute. And after 20 minutes, someone put their hand up and said, "Are you the teacher, miss?" And I was like, Yes, I'm the teacher. Let's move forward." So I made the mistake of making it about myself in that instance of communication, and that's what I was trying to convey in mine. And what I think, Jason, is what I think of when I think of speaking to a hostile, or in a tense communication thing, is to strike that balance well.